You're listening to a new episode of Girl Down Podcast with your host, me, Aeon. So sit back, relax, and listen as I unpack the uncertainty of my 30s, one episode at a time. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Girl Down Podcast with me, Aeon. And today I want to talk about the police murder of Amir Locke. So I think this is going to be one of the first episodes where I kind of get into my political lawyer bag, because this story has really been on my mind since I first heard about it. So unfortunately, we had another police involved shooting of a black man again in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Amir Locke was a 22-year-old young black man, and basically just about who he was. He was a young black man who was very interested in music. According to the stories, he just filed paperwork to incorporate his recording production company, and according to his mother, he was about a week away from relocating to Dallas, Texas, to focus on his music career and really start to put the pieces together for his young life that was senselessly taken away from him. So reading the story from the New York Times, Mr. Locke, 22, was fatally shot in an early morning raid at an apartment complex on Wednesday when a SWAT team for the Minneapolis Police Department carried out a search warrant involving a homicide for the police in nearby St. Paul. Mr. Locke was not named as a suspect in the warrant, according to authorities, nor was he a resident of the apartment, according to the lawyer representing his family. Locke was there staying with his cousin. The video of his murder has been circulating on the internet, where the police just announced that they were there and used the key fob to barge into the apartment that he was in. And as soon as he got up, within seconds, they shot him down. I've been watching a lot of Roland Martin, who have been able to illuminate a lot of details around the story. So apparently, just to set the tone, after the whole George Floyd incident, the George Floyd murder and killing, which also took place in Minneapolis in 2020, the mayor of Minneapolis put in an order that basically said that that MPD, Minneapolis Police Department, were not able to execute no search knock warrants. What are no knock warrants? So they're basically a warrant it's a type of warrant where you don't have to, the police don't have to knock and announce their presence before entering your place to either conduct a search or to apprehend somebody. And over the past couple of years, and particularly with the murder of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, there's been a push for, in addition to us abolishing police and abolishing prisons, to particularly abolish no-knock warrants, because for Black people, they often mean that we're going to die. If police are just able to come into our properties or come into our areas heavily armed with all of this gear, for Black people, we don't get the split second chance to show our humanity just by existing as we are in front of the police. Oftentimes, these no-knock warrants are excessively dangerous, and more than oftentimes they lead to death or injury, particularly of Black people, as we saw in the Breonna Taylor murder and as we are seeing in the Amir Locke murder. So after the whole George Floyd incident, the mayor of Jacob Frey instituted that in a show of good faith that the Minneapolis is moving in a new direction after the George Floyd murder, that there was a ban on the police executing these type of warrants. So the background on this situation is that, as you heard me read from the New York Times article, that the search warrant for this person came from St. Paul. So for those of you who don't know, Minneapolis, St. Paul are twin cities. They're located directly next to each other. So according to the story that was reported at Roland Martin, St. Paul asked Minneapolis police to execute this warrant because the person that St. Paul police were searching for was under Minneapolis jurisdictions. This murder took place in downtown Minneapolis. According to the stories from Roland Martin, Minneapolis Police Department, they were aware of this no-knock warrant ban, and they had the wherewithal that if they wanted to do this search on behalf of St. Paul Police Department, they could have either opted out of doing it, or they could have conducted the search in a way that they could have knocked, they could have announced themselves. There were other ways that they could have done this that didn't result in the death of yet another young Black man, of which Minneapolis went around this ban to do. And we can only assume that they knew that it was dangerous and they knew that the risk that they were taking, but they disregarded that, even in the face of this ban by the mayor. And when they enacted the search. And also, it should be of note that, like the report said, the police didn't even go into the right apartment, right? When they murdered this young man, they weren't even, the warrant that they were executing, they weren't even at the right department, and that's in part to bad Supreme Court case law, which basically allows the state to act on warrants and to go just randomly searching through apartments, even if they don't happen to go to the right apartment. The warrant just gives them this unrestricted power, especially if you live in an apartment building, that if the police has this warrant that's signed off by the judge, and it should be of note that the warrant in the Amir Locke murder was signed off by the same judge who presided over the George Floyd trial, which is really scary. But basically, Supreme Court law dictates that, under the good faith exception, that even if a warrant has an incorrect address in the scope of apartment complexes, officers are still going to be given the benefit of the doubt to execute these search warrants, even if it results in them inadvertently going into the wrong apartment and seeing that somebody has contraband, or even in this case, going into the wrong apartment and killing somebody that's not even a resident of the apartment. So if you want, go look up the Supreme Court case, Maryland v. Garrison, that kind of is the first in a long line of bad case law under the Fourth Amendment that just gives the police and the state just unlimited control. But like I said, this story has just been it's been on my mind all weekend. I've been thinking about it, and shout out to Marsha's Plate. Shout out to Diamond Styles, who we just recorded an episode last week. The episode is now up on Patreon. You can go watch it for $10. It'll be out. The audio will be out later this week for free, but if you want to watch it now, go watch that. But I was listening to her podcast, and they were having a conversation about just about performative politics and how performative politics never benefit the people that need it the most. And they were speaking about it in reference in the context of payment disparities when you break stuff by gender, class, sexuality, gender identity. But I think the conversation is applicable here in the Amir Locke case because had the city of Minneapolis, particularly this mayor Jacob Frey and the Minneapolis Police Department, had they actually been performing in an intentional way after the George Floyd uprising, this Amir Locke could have been living today. And it, to me, like, this situation with Amir Locke, it shows the inherent dangerousness of performative politics by performative allyship. People who, particularly after the summer of 2020, said that they stood in solidarity with Black folks and marginalized folks, said that they were willing to do anything, that they finally understood. And from 2020 to now, there have been so many opportunities for people to get it right, and people have just refused to. When you think about the opportunities that the Senate had to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, when you think about opportunities that that Congress and different cities have had to really create like radical institutional change to really change these things as a way of risk management and not just solely based on I don't want to look like a racist. We can avoid tragedies like Amir Locke and all of the other tragedies that happen when we have to do a hashtag this or RIP that. This murder could have been avoided and just putting a black fist up on the side of the building and topically saying we're going to just ban no-knock warrants. Where's the teeth? Where's the bite if the police departments decide to circumvent this thing, which they have the power to do behind the scenes because they thought the public wasn't going to know? When are we going to get tired of performative politics? Because that's really more that's the equivalent of somebody smiling in your face and stabbing you in the back at the same time. Like, when are we going to get over this performance of trying to do the right thing because we don't want the inconveniences of being canceled, but we don't want to change the systems. We don't want to change our hearts. We don't want to change our consciousness because we're satisfied with the status quo. Amir Locke did not have to die. He did not have to die. And shout out to Nakima Levy Armstrong, who is a lawyer. She's a black woman who's a lawyer up there in Minneapolis. And again, through watching the Roland Martin show, I was able to see a video of her where the mayor and the police chief or like the police communications in Minneapolis were having a news conference. And they were basically, they were just trying to save face. They were doing what a lot of these white organizations are doing when they don't really want to acknowledge that they fucked up, or they're not speaking directly to the heart of why they failed, and they were just saying they were just talking in circles. And Sister Nakima got up and was like, cut the bullshit. And I believe she ran for mayor of Minneapolis after the George Floyd thing. She didn't win, but she's still been active in Minneapolis. And she basically was like, cut the bullshit. Y'all put me on a police civilian accountability board, and we were under the guise that these no-knock warrants were banned. And now this boy died because clearly all of this work that we've been doing through these practice groups is meant nothing if on a whim the Minneapolis Police Department can circumvent this and do whatever they wanted to do anyway, and it ended in the senseless murder of this young 22-year-old boy who was just beginning to start his life. So shout out to Nakima Levy Armstrong for basically saying what the fuck needed to be said, and this is why we need a black woman with radical politics on the Supreme Court. Biden needs to keep his word, because if he doesn't, he can kiss his re-election goodbye. But this is why we need black women and people with radical politics to just get to speak to the heart of this issue, because this situation didn't have to happen. And if these white cishet institutions weren't worried about the optics, and they were really worried about radically realigning these institutions, shifting power to people who have been politically powerless and politically marginalized, and not so focused on always trying to shortchange them and dilute their power, actually having transparency and clear communications. This murder didn't have to happen. It didn't have to happen. It didn't have to happen. And I'm not going to keep y'all here too long, but I just want to say that this Amir Locke murder, it is reinforcement of why performative politics, performative allyship is not going to save us. In the long run, it is not going to save us, because once the sensationalism of the George Floyd thing went away, once the conviction was handed down of his murderer, it went back to business as usual. And here we are again 2 years later, having the same chants, marching in the same streets, having the same exact critiques for another black life that was taken on camera. And now we're back to square one. So what do we do now? And I'm pretty sure, because shout out to my sister Andrea Jenkins, who's the president of the city council. I'm pretty sure it's people like her and other people who are radical politicians who are usually by themselves out on a limb trying to advance these policies that are really going to save lives. And because a lot of these middle of the road Democrats who are really Republicans want to keep business as usual because it financially benefits them, it supports their ego, it supports their trip on where they're trying to go with their professional aspirations. They don't want to rock the boat. The people with the radical ideas are always getting shot down. We're always getting outnumbered, and we're always getting told that we're crazy. And we always end back up in situations like this, having to mourn another young lost life. But yeah, I just felt it on my spirit to get up here and talk about Amir Locke. I know, I'm pretty sure the murder happened last week, but I'm pretty sure by this week, he's going to be trending. Like, the story is going to get bigger. But y'all, continue to maintain your motherfucking militancy. Make sure you go back to the Maintain Your Militancy episode I did, because it's definitely related to this. But this performative policy, follow the money, follow the policies, follow the consequences for the policies. It's not, I don't want to see another, the M&Ms with the black and white edition and the Black Lives Matter. I don't want to see that shit. I don't want to. What policies are you doing to make sure that we never get here? Who are you removing that has power now that doesn't need to have power? What steps are you taking to remove these people, to censure these people, to make sure that they don't have access to this type of unrestricted power? All of these businesses that said Black Lives Matter, follow the money. who did they financially support? Who are they financially supporting with these midterm elections? They're saying Black Lives Matter and all of this dumb shit, but they're financially supporting either these Republican senators, governors, or these Democrats that are really Republicans that are not. They're stalling legislation. They're not voting on legislation that's going to move us forward as a country and move us forward as a people. Follow the money. It's not about what people say. It's about what they do and how they move. And these performances, they were never enough. And they can't be enough. And I just want to say that the police murdered that young boy. He didn't deserve to die. And he had a gun on him, but he legally had that gun. He was registered. He was a registered gun owner, and he carried it with him because he was a DoorDash driver, and he carried it as a means to protect themselves. And again, it's just another thing that there is no perfect victim. There's no perfect victim in these situations, because whether you are a quote unquote bad person or quote unquote good person, you're still going to be murdered. You're still going to be targeted, because when you exist in a marginalized identities, it just is what it is. But I'm just tired of this performative allyship. Y'all know how I get down. Y'all know how I move. I'm not here for the shit. And I'm here to fight. I'm here to push back. And this goes for performative allyship in all regards. If you're not for my people, you're not for me. I'm not doing the exceptionalism. None of that. None of that. I'm looking at your actions, and if shit doesn't match up, I'm saying something, or I'm getting the hell out and I'm moving accordingly. And I'm telling people, and I'm going to be honest about why this wasn't a fit or it didn't align for me. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to, of course, include links to the story, include links to the Roland Martin videos, links to Nikema Levy, links to the Maryland v. Garrison case, so y'all can read that. The police have ways to, and defund the police. Defund the motherfucking police. They don't need all of this money and this manpower, because being police officer is the only profession I know that you can royally fuck up and still be rewarded and be protected for fucking up. And they need to be dismantled. But that's all that I got to say. I had to get in my political activism lawyer bag. And make sure y'all go watch the episode on Patreon with me and Diamond. See y'all next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Girl Down Podcast with me, Aeon. If you like the show, please be sure to go on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast. Also, make sure that you're engaging with me on social media. Also, if you have any inquiries or you want to send me any questions, be sure to email me at girldownpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, bye y'all.